Hey there. Welcome to Trauma Informed Conversations. So today I'd like to talk about a couple of different things, but first, have you heard the news? I have published another book. It's called Hidden Crimes: The Role of the Church in Perpetuating Abuse. My first book is called You Are Not Alone, and it is all about my personal journey of healing from childhood abuse and everything I've learned through the healing. And this one, Hidden Crimes, expounds more on the spiritual abuse that I personally experienced, as well as the experience of others who have shared their stories with me, what I'm seeing exposed, and what's happening with all of that. I also go into, all throughout the book, I kind of sprinkle in like what we should do, how we should respond, but especially in the last chapter, I go into extensively what it looks like to be trauma informed and in our responses to survivors and victims. So I'm going to link to both books actually. Here we are. That had a sticker on it, so that's why you see that little blemish on it. But I'm going to link to both books in the description of this video, so you can go check them out and let me know what you think. I'll be talking probably more about this book because there's so much good stuff in there and it is very relevant for what's happening today. Speaking of trauma informed, I want to continue to talk about what it means to be trauma informed, but today I'm specifically going to be talking about what it means to be trauma informed as a coach and as a counselor. But first, I feel like I need to address what it means to be a counselor versus a coach. You may have already heard me give this analogy because I've had a couple of conversations with some other people, and I've given this analogy, and I just feel like it's a good fit for describing this. And the analogy is, I may have even done it in one of my episodes already, but let me just go ahead and say it. So the analogy is of a sports doctor and a physical therapist. All right. So a sports doctor will initially look at the injury. He will diagnose the problem, and he may prescribe meds for that issue, the pain relief and whatever else might be needed. After a while, when the injury gets to a certain point, he will refer the patient to a physical therapist. And that's where the physical therapist will help the individual to strengthen whatever muscles, tendons, other things that might have been injured with that injury. So the analogy is that the sports doctor are the counselors. The sport doctors are the counselors, okay? The physical therapists are the coaches. Okay, so that's how it works. So being trauma informed is another level on top of the education and training and certifications that we both get. There are trauma informed counselors and there are trauma informed coaches. And if you look at my last episode, I talk more about what it means to be trauma informed. And if you read this book in the last chapter, definitely will tell you more about what it means to be trauma informed. And really it's about understanding that trauma develops once trauma's happened, okay? And what I mean by trauma, it can be abuse, but it can also be events that happen that are totally beyond our control. We talked about this last time, how accidents can bring on trauma. Car accidents, any type of accident can bring on trauma. Seeing something else happen to someone else can bring on a level of trauma. All right. Abuse absolutely brings trauma. Any type of abuse, spiritual, physical, sexual, all of it, emotional, verbal, all of it brings on its own trauma and needs to be healed and acknowledged. So as a trauma-informed coach and counselor, what that means is we understand that element to healing. So when someone comes to us and they feel stuck in their life, they're coming to us to try and understand more about how to move forward or how to process something that keeps popping up for them, right? And it's not even that we have to ask them if they've had trauma in their life. We don't have to ask them that. We're so well educated that we can just tell. We can tell by how they word things, their language. We can tell by their patterns of thinking, how they think about things, how they see things. So we're going to ask questions that will bring about more understanding of if they've been through trauma without having to actually ask them if they've been through trauma. So that's the work that we do. That's the lens we do our work through. And it's so very helpful because trauma is a huge reason why a lot of us get stuck. And we really can't seem to move forward, or we seem to be going around the same bush relationally, professionally. It all is affected when there's unhealed trauma and things that just haven't been faced yet in our personal lives. So that's why I added the trauma informed on top of becoming a coach, because like I mentioned in the last episode, there are all kinds of different coaches, business coaches, financial coaches, life coaches. I added the trauma informed because I have a passion for survivors and victims first and foremost. And I just felt like that would be an area I could really support people in. And so that's the difference. And shoot, everything just went dark. All right, I'm going to see if I can edit out what just happened. Everything went blank for some reason. So here we are. I'm just wrapping this up anyway. So that's basically in a nutshell what I do and why I do it and what it means to be trauma informed. And I think what will be very, very helpful is to pick up my book again and look at that last chapter 12, What Do We Do Now? And it just, it's chapter 13, Trauma Informed. And that's where I talk about understanding trauma. Be mindful of your words. Okay, a few things here. Understand triggers. Don't force them to talk. Don't try to fix their pain. And then there's just more. I expound more underneath these. These are headlines. Respect boundaries. Take care of yourself too. You cannot heal for them. And then I have some final thoughts. Trauma-informed support is not about saying the perfect thing. It's about helping someone feel emotionally safe, respected, believed, heard, and valued. All right? So I hope that helps, and I hope you'll pick it up and give it a read. And I hope that these videos will continue to bring about some good conversation between you and others. What I did want to mention was I think my next episode is going to be on a current situation. So speaking of, again, this book, how the role the church plays in perpetuating abuse. There's a church right down the road from me that is really going through it right now. They're big time in the news. The pastor and leaders of this church and their school, 4 of them have been arrested for allowing a known perpetrator to work for them as a custodian in the church and the school. So he was around children. It's a mess. It's just such a mess. But what I want to bring about is obviously what they did wrong, but also what's being done that is so right. And there's some really good highlights to this whole story that I want to bring about. So that'll be my next episode 4, I think. So stay tuned. I hope you come back, and I hope you'll like and subscribe this episode, and let's continue to have some great conversation. See you next time.